Welcome to Kansas City Business Cast Season 2. I'm still trying to get my intros, dusting off the language on those. I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it today. Welcome to the show. One of my new friends, Chase Forsyth, right? Okay, yes, I said it right.
Yep.
Yeah, who I met at the Beastified gym grand opening. Listeners of the show, you'll remember did from episode 19. He is the founder of Beastified Gym. So obviously they've got a strong community over there. I've met Chase and a few other folks there that have been very supportive of me and my journey. And Chase, Hardwear Clothing, welcome to the show, sir.
Appreciate you having me on, man. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, it's just an honor, honestly. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm super pumped.
Man, I'm super pumped as well. I think seeing you and Kenny and Brian at the grand opening and how open you guys were, again, was another layer for me, kind of breaking that myth that like bodybuilders are not approachable people, are very intense. And, I've always been really kind of intense as well. But, when I got to meet Sid and then got to know Corey as well from Sweat Vault, his wife, hearing from them and kind of interviewing them, as well as a couple other fitness folks that I've had on the show, your crowd, your community has been the most supportive of this show. I have never had so many followers, comments, people have checked in, and also people that have stayed along in the journey from this crowd. And so naturally that kind of invited me to take my fitness seriously again. And, the rest is kind of like history in the making as I'm working out at Beastified and my company gym and all that stuff. So really excited to meet you. I am definitely a fan of hardware. I got my shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Got my shirt, man. So I'm geeking already. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your origin story and wherever it seems right to start, we'll go there. But I definitely want to talk to you about your journey in bodybuilding, also in building hardware and all that stuff. So you go ahead and kick it off.
Right on. Yeah. So as far as like hardware goes, like the clothing brand, I'll start with that. A couple years ago, probably like 2 years ago, I was still living in Iowa at the time. So this was before I moved to Kansas City. Me and a buddy, Brad Jacobs, we were gym buddies. We kind of discussed like the idea of a clothing brand. Like it was interesting to us. It kind of sat at that for a while. And then some time went on, and like one night we were at the gym training, and he was like, we were just going to hang out at his place after. He had an iPad, and we were like, dude, let's just like throw up some doodles or whatever. Just, we were bored. So we were on his iPad making some designs. And I was like, oh man, that looks really cool actually. Like, he was like, yeah, some more time goes on. I actually moved to Kansas City last February, so 2 Februaries ago. And when I left, he gave me some of his fresh prints that he had just gotten done, and they're really solid. I'll say though, a lot of them were like not my size, so I was like kind of bummed I couldn't wear them. So I ended up giving them to Kenny and Brian when I first became friends with them here. And then a little later on, last September, Brad came and visited down here in Kansas City, and he brought like 20 some shirts. And again, they were like not my size. And I was like, dude, I would love to wear these, but I think I took one of them and I cut the neck and the sleeves, and I was able to wear it.
So these were like regular, like Fruit of the Loom classic type T-shirts, right? Or were they? Because yeah,
they were like, so it's a brand called Shockaware, and
okay.
Which is what we're back to using now, just a different style. So the original style, like the very first one, it was the neck was just the problem. It was like a freaking dog collar. Like I was like, what the fuck is this? I feel like I'm suffocating. So that's why I ended up cutting a lot of the necks out. But I was like, you know what, dude? Like, this kind of seems like the vibe that would fit a lot of these people and like the clothes that they're wearing. So I was like, let me just sell them. I walked into the gym that day with the cutoff that I had on, and dude, I had at least like 5 to 7 people come up to me like while I was at the gym, and they're like, where the hell did you get that? Like, what is that? I'm like, oh, did you want to buy one? And they're like, yeah. I was like, well, they're in my car. So I just kept his box that he gave me of about 20 shirts in my trunk, and I sold them in probably about a week. Like it was really quick, a lot quicker. Like I was just like, it was one of those things I was just like, yeah, I'll sell them, whatever, no big deal. And then like literally the day later after Brad had gone home, I was like, hey, homie, like, what's your Venmo? Because all these people wanted to buy the shirts. So I sold them all. And I was like, I FaceTimed Brad and I was like, dude, this has like mad potential here in Kansas City. Because the difference between Kansas City and Iowa, where we're at, there's like the fitness industry is just not really existent. I mean, it's there, but it's like the bodybuilding community, like competitors, like people who take their fitness to the next level is much more popular here. And that's actually
Wow.
why I decided to move. I was like, I need to be in a spot that the bodybuilding is more popular. So I was like, yeah, it has mad potential, dude. He's like, okay. You know, so more time goes on. He got really busy with life, which is understandable. And it kind of just stayed at that for a little bit. This last June, 2 months ago, I went back home to Iowa and me and him got dinner. And he was like, man, like I thought this was going to be a lot easier to run by myself. I just need someone to like just do the shit. Like I make the designs and I just need someone to do the rest of the shit for me. And I was like, man, like, I mean, at the time he had already known Brian and Kenny. And I was like, dude, these dudes are fucking legit. Like I have a team. Let's do this. So he's like, okay. So we left that night. The next day I went back home to Kansas City and I was like, texted Brian and Kenny in a group chat with Brad. And I was like, hey man, here's the deal. Like, this is going to happen. Like we have a team. I want to put it together and do the thing. And so we got to talking, obviously. I think it was right before Sid's grand opening. Like I think a couple days before, I was like, yo, ship any shirts that you have, bro. We have a grand opening of this brand new gym.
My
Just
gosh.
a ton of hype behind it. Like we need to have shirts here. He's like, all right, got me the shirts in like 4 or 5 days, just a big ass box of like, I think it was like somewhere to 30 to 40, somewhere in there. It's pretty much everything that he had already printed that was just laying around. So it was just literally sitting in his basement. And like, I even remember the last time that I was at that dude's place, his whole basement is just full of fucking clothes, like stacked boxes of shorts, clothes just sitting there. I'm like, send it here. Like,
That's how
let's
the
do
birth
this.
of a clothing company happens, man. It
Yeah,
gets piled up like laundry all over the house, man.
exactly. Yeah. And so
Gosh.
I was just like, send it all here. Like, let's get it for this grand opening, please. Like, this is a huge opportunity. So we got it here. We got a table set up with Sid. Sid was all about it from the start. He was like, dude, that shit on the back there, bodybuilding saved my life. Like your guys' shirts, I want that. Like that's sick. So we gave him a couple of shirts to kind of like just wear around, and then we sold. I think it was like 32 on the day of. Yeah, there it is. Hell yeah.
Sorry, real time advertising, bro. Got to.
got thrown in there. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we, I think it was like we had 2 shirts that were left over from that day. So it was about 30 some that we sold. And after that, I was like when that was said and done, I looked at Kenny and Brian. I was like, dude, this is like, it kind of opened their eyes a little bit. It was like, this has some potential for sure.
Man,
and then obviously,
I was going to say, yeah, that event was just really kinetic, man. Like families were there the entire time. I remember walking up to Brian going, yo, what's this? Because I'm into, the metal music and, black t-shirts with white fonts. And, obviously you guys, you live your values and your strengths. You can see it literally on you. Hard work, dedication, all that. And yeah, you guys were just super, super cool to talk to. And just to comment on that event and that environment that Sid created, inviting you guys and everybody else, Dre and Jessica, John Ott, all those people. It was just so cool, man. So cool.
Yeah, it was a great day. It was so much fun to see these people. Like a lot of the designs that we have for our drop now was like one of them was like the very few that me and Brad started with, like just fucking around on the iPad. And so it was like seeing people be like almost geeked out a little bit about that. I was like, this is so cool. And yeah, it's like we just had some people that like you wouldn't think they'd be interested in our clothing. just like, because when I see our clothing, I think a lot about like my generation, like the younger generation. That's kind of like the style. But we had some of the older crowd that was like, hey, like what is this? And it was just cool to see that, because like I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that at all.
You guys have a very I call it punk rock, okay? Because I
Yeah.
remember when I was a kid growing up in bands, whenever we made T-shirts, it was a black shirt, because black is also a very flattering color. It
Yeah.
makes you look a little bit slimmer and serious. And if you go back to like Johnny Cash, the Man in Black, all that
Hmm.
stuff, and then to see like this, bodybuilder dudes that are wearing like something that looks like a metal band, it's very intense, it's very simple, it's striking, but that's why I don't find it surprising that maybe people in Gen X are looking at it going, gosh, that doesn't look like everything else. The thing that I'm curious about too, and I think Brian told me this, because I was asking him about the fit on it, and he said, yeah, it's really good for guys like us and you, because you guys, when you get ready for competing, you can obviously put on several pounds of muscle, and you can't just go grab a shirt from Kohl's or wherever. I'm guessing too, athletic fit is almost like an oxymoron with you guys and your physique, but like your shirts are, they're really big, they're really roomy.
Yeah. So again, that was a huge thing when we started this, because we knew a lot of our audience would be competitors, bodybuilders, people that are gaining a lot of weight, losing a lot of weight. Like we want to have it also, like the oversized fit is like it's the new trend a lot of the days with the pump covers is what they call it. Yeah, and it's like I said earlier, when Brad gave me those shirts, I was like, dude, none of these fucking fit. Like my neck, I feel like I'm suffocating. Like, of course, it's not the case for everyone, but we want to have both ends of the spectrum. Like we have our sizes are from medium to 4X. Like we want everything in there, just because there's so many different body types that are like in the gym realm. So yeah, like the oversized fit is the move for us. Yeah, especially with anyone that has some muscle, they're gonna need something a bit more oversized. And we kind of we're trying to bring back kind of like the old school 80s 90s bodybuilder look, where they were wearing like the sleeves here, like the longer like 3/4 sleeves, and then the
Yeah.
boxy look. Like that was kind of like what we were aiming for there.
Oh my gosh. And then you got the new shorts too that
Yeah.
they're not Zubaz color scheme, but that's what they remind me of. They're that tiger stripe. I know Brian was rocking those, right? But yeah, I just realized it is totally a nod to the 80s. On that subject, like who are some bodybuilders that influenced you in your journey? How you took fitness as, a younger man, and then like going into now like competing, and then I know you're also a coach as well.
Hmm.
So, let's kind of talk about that, like who influenced you, and then maybe go from there.
Yeah. So I think where it first started, really, like recently it's changed a little bit, obviously, because like when I was growing up, I wasn't really seeing a whole lot of like bodybuilding. I think maybe my first like person that I could think of was maybe like Jay Cutler. I
Hmm.
think was probably like the first one I saw, and it was like I was very amazed by his physique, but I was like, I could never get there. Like, why would I want to look up to someone that looks like that, right? And that was my first impression, because I wanted obviously more of like a tone, lean look. Like I was like, that'd be impossible to get that big, right? And I think for a while that's kind of where it stood. I've just always been into fitness. I mean, my entire life has been sports. So my my
Okay.
dad was a football coach for 30 plus years, so it was kind of like it was something that's always been ingrained in my life. Like fitness has been a huge thing. Like back in the day when I was younger, I spent a lot of time in the weight room, like all the time. Like
Mm.
my dad would bring me to every single lifting that the team had. Like I'd be there hanging on the pull up bars, like just fucking around. But I was there all the time. So it was something that in my head as a kid, I was like, this is what a man needs to be a man. Like you need to be in the weight room, like lifting heavy weights. Like so for a while it was like the people I looked up to were football players, like his football players. It was like that's who I want to be. Like I see one of his running backs squatting 500 pounds. I'm like, that's fucking off. That's what I want to do. Like it had always my life had always been football for the longest time, and wrestling. I did both, but it was mainly
Okay.
football. that kind of started it, obviously. From then on, I just really, it was weird. Like, long story short, I just really enjoyed the off season lifting more than I did like the season of football, and I never could really find out why. I was just like, why do I always enjoy being like doing the hard training? We used to take, and what we would do after our like football lifting, we had these things that were called prowlers, and so it was it's like a sled that you add weight on,
Yep.
and we'd be pushing that shit across like just straight concrete in the parking lot. So it was like,
Wow.
like the grimy shit like that is what. And yeah, speaking of grimy, like that weight room was disgusting and it was awesome. I loved it. I thought it was so cool. It was so hot and just grimy. Like I was like, man, this is what I like. And so yeah, I always really enjoyed the weight training more than I did the actual sport. So some
Wow.
time went on, and then my freshman year of high school, during my wrestling season, I tore my labrum in my shoulder. It's like in the humerus, like
Okay.
it's the muscle that connects the humerus and the bicep tendon.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a
Okay,
little
got it.
ball. It's a little ball that's in there, and I fucked it up really bad in a wrestling match. So I actually, unfortunately, had to get it repaired. It was only about a 4 or 5 month recovery, so it wasn't too bad. But originally, what started, a lot of people talk about body dysmorphia. This was the origin of it for me. I'm a freshman in high school, and I'm fucking complaining about that my left arm looks bigger than or looks smaller than my right, and I couldn't stand it. Like, it bothered me so much. I just could not stand it. So I put all my effort into trying to get myself back to 100%. Again, the goal was to be able to play sports, but I was just so obsessed with getting symmetrical in my upper body and being in the weight room and doing shoulder exercises, like my shoulder mobility, all that stuff. So that happened. I got back into sports. It was pretty rough to try and get back when you have something like that. I just couldn't perform the same, really. And then, so 2 years later, my junior year of high school, I had another wrestling match, and I dislocated my kneecap and tore my ACL. So it was
Good
like,
night, bro.
I was very upset. I spent my entire childhood and on playing football and wrestling. Like that's what it was. That's all it was. I didn't care about anything else. So it was my life, much like bodybuilding is today. And so when that happened, the same problem. Like, I saw how my left leg looked compared to my right, and it bothered the hell out of me. I couldn't stand it. So that, honestly, like, that's probably the lowest point I think I've ever been in my life. And that was all before I was 18.
Wow.
So I had experienced quite a bit, exposed to like some very, very hard times and adversity. But, like I had my family the whole time to be next to me. So they helped a ton. Like, they were like, they paid for all my physical therapy, everything. Not that I could afford it on my own, obviously, but like, it's shit like that it meant a lot to me. I remember, like, so we didn't know it was my ACL at first. We got it popped, my kneecaps back into place, and then I got scheduled for an MRI. And I was hoping, like, so from that day, I could not put any weight on my foot at all for the next 6 months. So that was kind of a telling sign that maybe there's more than just, we're like, oh, maybe it's meniscus, because you can get that shaved out and you're good. So we kind of had some hope there, and I was trying to tell myself that it was feeling better leading up to the MRI. I was like, oh yeah, I think it's starting to feel good. Like, maybe it's not as bad as we think. And then we got the results in, and they said, yeah, it's an ACL, like, completely in half. And so I just remember that car ride home was so tough for me. Like, I was like, this is over. Like, no more sports for me. It was at an awkward transition, because it was spring of junior year going into senior. So I was like, this was pretty much it. And
that's really tough on kids, man, especially active dudes like yourself. Like, that's almost like being grounded for, a year.
Yeah. And it's like, well, like, at that time as a kid, it's all I cared about. Like, my parents obviously were
it's your entire world, bro.
Very strict about getting good grades. I was like, fuck that. I love playing sports. Like, that's all I cared about. That's all I could think about. And so having that stripped away from me really, really made me upset. And I just just remember them being there for me the whole time. And so, yeah, it was quite a process. Again, like I said, seeing myself like that, I was just like, couldn't stand it. So again, I got into physical therapy. I was like, let's fucking do this. Like, I was very determined to get back to healthy. And I knew football season was out of the question, obviously, because that was spring and they were already starting stuff. So let's try to get back for wrestling, see if I can do something. And like looking back at it, I honestly do kind of regret doing that. I feel like it kind of set my knee back a little bit further, just because I wasn't quite 100%. I was about 80, and when they cleared me,
Right.
Again, I couldn't perform nearly the same that I used to. I had to change everything.
The thing that I feel like this is a good point to go down that path too with injury and stuff. And I think you had mentioned too that, facing your injuries and recovering, going into bodybuilding. I mean, there are people right now listening, and I know this. I know you, not you, Chase, but you are out there and you look at what some folks are doing and you say to yourself, but I have an injury and I can't, doctor said I can't do this, or I can't, I've had surgeries, I have had these things, and I know personally how debilitating like a injury is, especially like tendons and like the things that connect muscles, and how it's amazing how these strands of these tight fibers in your body can just cripple an entire limb, And I just want to kind of ask you about that, like from your road to recovery to your physique now to your physique and getting into bodybuilding and feeling like confident again. Like, what was that shift like? To get through that too, all that mental stuff, because it feels like with injuries, at least in my personal experience, like the mental stuff is almost just as hard, if not harder, than the physical stuff, because then there's a fear when you lift with that arm or you do a shoulder press with that shoulder, or what does that look like, that road and defeating the myths and the warfare, I guess, in your mind?
Yeah. Well, it's very difficult. It's very hard to do. I can't tell you how many times I was like, oh my God, I tore it again. Like, there it is. Yep. Like on that road to recovery, like there have been many times where I had thought that. And honestly, at least for the knee, like I've already been there. Like I had already done this road once with my shoulder. I was like, no big deal. Done it before. Let's get back to work. So although I will say, like, the knee was quite similar, but quite different from the shoulder. That was a quick 5-month recovery.
Yep.
When I got back into like benching and stuff, I was like obviously very cautious. But there comes a time where you get over that mental block. Like you're like, you feel strong again. My head spent time strengthening my muscles around my shoulder and my pecs. So it was like I wasn't having any issues there. And, sometimes it gets a bit more achy than the other one, but the knee was huge. Like that was that's how you walk. So, and
What was your squat? What was your squat 3 weeks ago when you had the plates loaded up and they gave you the sniff of the yup strength? Or what are you squatting now, bro?
So that was, let's see, 5. It was 5 1/4 on each side. So that's 495 plus 50. So 445, or yeah, I think so, or 545. I think I did that for 8 reps. I think it was.
So just going off of like having a torn ACL in the past, like that's, yeah. I feel like that kind of presented it to me, to myself. Yeah, no. I was like having that injury and then squatting that much weight,
Yeah. Yep. Unreal, man. I do have to be, I will say going through physical therapy has benefited being a bodybuilder, because it makes me keep up on my mobility. Like as a bodybuilder, it's very important to keep your mobility in check, because, when you get thicker in the off season or whatever, it's, fucking hard to move. And honestly, well, let's not forget, like what you're doing, presenting your physique, posing, that's a lot of mobility. If you can't learn to bring your shoulders back in a front double bicep because they're so fucked up and jankety, like what's the point? It's something that has been put into my like fitness routine from physical therapy. I've never stopped doing my mobility, my stretching. Like it's something that I've always been really good about ever since.
I was blown away. Sid told me after we were done recording his episode, he said, "Yeah, let me know when you want to go take a yoga class at the Sweat Vault." You know, Corey, his wife, and I
Yeah.
said, "I want to refer my wife. I'll refer my wife to that class." He goes, "No, let me know when you want to go." I was like, "You do yoga?" He goes, "Dude, I'm a bodybuilder. I have to be flexible to pose." And I was like, you know. And then I think it was a week later, Corey came in for her interview, and she reinforced that, and it was just like, I mean, again, that's a myth. I feel like that people that don't know about bodybuilding or know bodybuilders is like there's a tremendous amount of flexibility. You can't just start picking up that type of weight as well unless you know how to lift it properly. You know. So all right. So I apologize for that. We were talking about the injury, getting back to injury, and I said have to be very sort of intimately connected with your body and how it works. You've got to be mindful of previous injuries. And I'm guessing from my own experience that you gain awareness that you didn't have before when you get injured, right? Like that's part of the learning process as well. Really curious too about bodybuilding saved my life. Where did that come from?
Oh yeah. So I mean, with all of us in the brand, it means something different. I'll just say for me at least, going through all those injuries, right? Like I said, it was sports were my life. So it was like when I didn't have that, I was very, very low, very depressed, like felt like my life was over. And that's shortly after I had found out that I had my ACL repaired. So I was in a brace, crutches, all that. My dad got some dumbbells and other shit from the weight room at the high school and brought it at home. So I had that shit in my room. I was still, I still had a gym membership at a gym close by to our house. So I throw my crutches in the back of the trunk, drive there, and I was still, I was doing what I could. I had like a three day split. I would do chest, back, and then arms, and just rotate that through. So it was like I couldn't train my legs, but I was still doing something. And over time, I realized like being in the gym was my release, my happy place. So it was like I would say that's kind of what started it for me, at least. Like living the bodybuilding lifestyle keep me out of trouble. Like it kept me sane almost because I was so focused. Long before I had even decided to start competing, I was just living the bodybuilder lifestyle as an 18-year-old kid. Like I was like making my own meals, like making sure I had enough protein every day, going to the gym. I mean, that at that time I was spending probably a little bit too much time at the gym, and doing more breakdown than repairing. It
Mm,
was it was because it was just somewhere I wanted to be all the time. That's all I could think about all day long.
um,
So I think I realized, quickly that bodybuilding, that lifestyle, kind of saved my life in a sense. Like beforehand, I was so not confident. I was very insecure. I was very, very upset, very depressed, very low. And having that bodybuilding in my life is what kept me going.
Man, I love how you started talking about some of the benefits too. Saw, for example, too, when Sid came to his interview, he had his lunchbox, right? And he I know this is something part of why I respect what you guys do so much is because the level of control that you are exercising um on other parts of your life when you're not in the gym as well, right? So that whole concept of like I want my environment to be a product of me. I don't want to be a product of my environment. I'm not going to be in a spot talking from your perspective, right? Like where I'm hungry and my only option is the terrible fast food in the kitchen at work or whatever.
Hmm.
It's like you're taking control of that. Aside from like, the confidence obviously, which is huge and transfers into every other area of life, what would you say the other benefits of bodybuilding are? And then we can kind of go to competing as well.
Yeah. As far as the benefit goes, man, like, yeah, obviously you listed off some, bodybuilding is, it's going through that. And I'm not even at the end yet. Like this, I'm still in the beginning phase as a competitor, but obviously I've been accustomed to that lifestyle for a while. And it's just something that a book can't really teach you. Like it teaches you to be determined, very determined. It teaches you sacrifice. Like you have to be willing to give up, like you said, the convenience of fast food or whatever the hell it is. Like you have to sacrifice quite a bit to live. Not even just the competing part. That's a whole different ballgame. The lifestyle as a bodybuilder, you have to just living that, getting, at least for a male bodybuilder, like getting 6 meals in a day, hitting 300 plus grams of protein, drinking 2.5 gallons of water, getting 8 hours of sleep. Like it's 24/7, 365. There's no break. And that's, like I said, that's just that. If it's a competitor, obviously that's full throttle. There's still guys like myself. Before I was competing, I was doing the same shit and not even thinking about stepping on stage. It was just like, this is what I like doing. Like I love being locked in on something like your physique that takes so much work to get it to where you want to be.
Absolutely, man. So you've been, what made you decide to compete?
So like I said before, with the injuries, right? I felt like a loser. Like I felt I had some unfinished business because I spent my entire childhood, football, wrestling, all the way through, and then I get to the most important 4 years of high school, and I only get to compete barely 2 out of the 4. I was like, and with my dad being a football coach, I felt like a failure to him. I was like, this is like, I fucking hated it so bad. I just wanted to be competitive in some aspect. And along with being competitive in the gym, obviously with others around you, I was like, what is the next step look like for that? And so I had a few buddies. I had no, and like I said, in Iowa, like that shit is not popular at all. Like there is none of that. So it was very rare to come by someone that had. I had one person, Chris Beckett is his name. He's an OG. He's the one who got me into the idea of competing. He was like, you have a really good physique, you train hard. And he's also one of the dudes who saw me coming to the gym with my crutches. So he knows that I am determined. Like he knows I'll do whatever it takes. And so a couple years down the road, I saw him again. I hadn't seen him in a couple years because I switched to a different gym. But I saw him and he was like, let's do some posing, man. Like, so he didn't know a whole lot about it, but he kind of knew. So he kind of like showed me and another buddy some poses. And then it was during COVID, actually. I was watching a lot of YouTube and I saw Chris Bumstead. And I was like, who is this dude? Like, he looks fucking insane. I was like, he's only 22 years old. I was like, this is crazy. How does he look like that? And so he was posting, and this was before he had won any of his Olympias. I had actually just subscribed to his YouTube. It was like 2 months before the first Olympia that he won. So it was 2019. I watched his entire YouTube series all the way up to the show day, and I was like, wow, like that's what I want to do. I want to do that.
Wow.
And so I was like, this dude's a badass. Like I was following all of his shit. And then I was like, okay. So those two came together, and then I had my current training partner. He was like, let's do a show. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And it was kind of bad timing because this was still when everything was fucking closed down. Like the gyms had just reopened. And I had started my prep before the gyms had opened. And I had a buddy who had some gym equipment in his basement. We could get everything that we needed. And I was doing a lot of like hybrid training just because I didn't have machines and shit. I had a Smith machine, which is great. Because if you have a Smith machine, I mean, you can pretty much do everything you need. But
absolutely. That's what I love about Beastified as well for me. Like I'm trying to get back up to where I once was, right? So I can start with lighter weights and get the reps in and all that. So yeah. So you had a Smith machine.
Yeah. And so we had that. And then, like I said, the gyms had just barely opened up around. And that's when I had already started my prep. So I had no coach. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. I just had this dude that taught us some poses and then my buddy, and we just gathered information together from what we had already known. And we just sent it. Like I way over dieted myself. Like I was just eating.
What does that mean? Yeah. What does way over dieting mean?
So
this is going to be like an eye opener for so many people that have no idea what is involved in this world, right? So how can one over diet, brother?
Right. So what why it's nice to have not necessarily like a coach, but a mentor that knows what the hell they're doing when it comes to bodybuilding. Because when you get that depleted of glycogen, or your fats are very low, like your brain can't think properly. So a lot, and along with like body dysmorphia, you don't really see what you actually look like. So your mind is like, I need to get leaner, I need to get leaner. Like, just let's keep beating it down. I obviously I just kept dropping calories all the way down to like 1,100, 1,200, which is not, for a male, that's like, you need to be eating more than that.
Right.
So I was still getting my protein, but I could have used way more fats and carbs. But doing that, I learned a lot from that first show, because I coached myself the entire way through. And it's actually funny too, for the peak week, the week of getting ready for the show, I was watching another podcast, and there was two dudes that were competing in the same show, and they're IFBB pros, and they both had told the guy on the podcast what they were doing for their peak week. So I'm like, all right, I'm doing exactly what they're doing. And that's literally, I pulled it all together, and that was that. So,
bro, that's so wild. I love that.
That was my first journey on stage. And afterwards, I was like, holy shit, that was awesome. Like, when it comes to competing, it's either one or two ways. You wake up and you're bit by the bug pretty bad. You're like, oh man, I'm addicted. Or you're like, I'm never doing that again. So for me, I was like, when's my next show? Like, I woke up the next day in the hotel and I was like, when's the next show? So that was my beginning.
The thing that I've gathered too about you, Sid, Brian, Kenny, your crew, I mean, everybody who has signed one of the I-beams at Beastified, people that go there all times during the day, like, these are some of the most supportive, positive, happy, enthusiastic. I know that they don't have perfect lives. Everybody's got things that they deal with and struggle with, but the community is so supportive. I can't really think of anything that's like it. You know what I mean? Because I've been in different circles. Like, I've been in musician circles when I was in the band, and other bands, and certain industries like in engineering or whatever. And there is something about people that are working to build their bodies and their minds and good habits. They seem to succeed in all other areas, at least the majority. And that's my perception. And that's one of the things that's been magnetizing for me in, going to Beastified and getting to know people there, getting to know you. What is something that you're super grateful for? And then maybe you could call out something that needs to change or that you're wanting to change, either in fitness or you're helping your clients through, because I know you're a coach as well. But yeah, can you give us a big pro and a big con of bodybuilding?
Yeah, and like you said, in terms of like, because that's awesome that you are saying that a lot of people, at least at Beastified, like, the community is really good, because that's actually quite rare in the fitness industry.
Wow.
A lot of the times, it sucks, because a lot of the times in the fitness industry, a lot of people are very insecure about their bodies, so they like to comment on other people's bodies and like put them down for just because they're mad with their own physique. It's gotten better, but that's a lot of the time there's a lot of negativity actually in the fitness industry.
Wow.
That would be the biggest thing. It sucks, because it's like, it's different now, but at least when I first started to get into it, it's like, no, like, we need to become closer, because the fitness industry wasn't as big yet. It's bigger now, but it's like, it was such a small group, especially competitors. Like, it's still a small percentage of the population. So it's like, spreading negativity is only putting it apart when we need to be closer together. So that's the thing that sucks. But bodybuilding, like, you ask the pros and cons of bodybuilding, like, you don't really see a whole lot of that in actual competitive bodybuilding. And the reason I say that is, like, anyone that is in it, an actual competitor that's in it 100%, they're most likely, when they meet someone else that does it, they're like, I get you. Like, I know what you go through. I go through the same thing. So it's like when it comes show day, you know, and you're backstage, everyone is in a good mood. They're like, we all made it here. That's awesome. There's always that one dude that's an asshole, but
Sure.
for the most part, everyone's like vibing, because it's like we all made it. That's the most important thing about bodybuilding, is making it to the stage. So it's like at that point you have already won, regardless of the placing you get. You've already won making it to the stage. So I would say, you know, yeah, that having that camaraderie or togetherness as a fellow competitor is a very big pro of bodybuilding.
Absolutely.
A lot of, I would say, like the biggest con maybe would be trying to explain the lifestyle to someone that doesn't understand it, which is a lot of people. You know,
Yes.
and it's the really hardest when it's someone that's close to you, like family or whatever, and they don't understand. They don't understand that I have to do an hour of cardio every day, or I have to pose twice a day. I have to eat this, eat that. They don't understand it. So that's probably the hardest part about living this, especially when you start out. Like when I started out, like I didn't have any help at all, no support. Like the only other person that was supporting me was my buddy that I competed with in my first show. It was kind of like everyone else is like, what the fuck is this dude doing? So that's the hardest part, I think.
You know, it's hard enough going in business for yourself, because a lot of that stuff happens as well. And then yes, uh, one of the funniest things that I hear, because most of the time, and I've seen me be the person to say it. Now it's been several years to my own credit, but most of the people that say this next phrase don't have to worry about it coming true, and that is, I don't want to get too big. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you get really big and muscular, even if you look like, you know, 5'4" mini Hulk, that's going to be a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Like if you go into the weight room and you lift 5 times and get huge, like, wow,
Must be nice.
that isn't going to be a nice problem to try and solve for yourself. I don't know what it is. I mean, when I found myself saying that or hearing other people to say it, I don't even remember what the psychology was. You hear people, right? Again, I think probably because of their own insecurities, they put this stuff out there and they go, dudes, we talk shop, and some dude's talking about his max bench, or he did Murph with the CrossFit gym or whatever. And then there's the person who says, you know, I just care about functional fitness. I just want to be able to, like, you know, play with my kids and grow old, and you know, and it's like we all have insecurities about what we're doing, what we think we should be doing. There is so much in physical fitness. I love how you've called out body dysmorphia a couple times. Ethan Suplee, do you remember him? The actor, that I think he was like 500 pounds. Now he's down to like, I think he's
Oh yeah.
225. He's the kill your clone guy.
Yep.
And he's in super good shape, man. And, you know, I don't think he got his stretch marks surgically fixed or anything. I think he might actually keep that on as a reminder of where he's come from. But, you know, he talks about that. And I know too, just from personal experience of, you know, being, you know, almost 200 pounds morbidly obese a few years ago in my life. And then how different it was being able to do, you know, multiple pull-ups and losing weight and all that stuff. All that to say, sorry, I have tangents. Every
You're
guest
fine.
has to deal with at least one, brother. But
That's all
you
good.
know, with all the myths, and then like you said, explaining it to people that don't understand it. What do you wish, or what do you hope for people that don't understand it, but you think it would be the best thing to ever happen to them, man? Like, I mean, what do you, maybe a better way to word it is like, what do you wish people that were resistant to the lifestyle knew?
I wish, well, it's like people that are closed-minded like that. I wish they would just understand what it takes to get to where they want in terms of like their physique. Like whether it's like they want to just be fit and tone, or they want to be a 300-pound mass monster. Like it's going to take work regardless. So I feel like if they knew, and that's why, like it's good to see bodybuilders or fitness people posting on like social media to give those people from the outside world an idea of like what that looks like. Yeah, I just wish that they knew like the work that it takes to get there. Like it's not just that someone gets lucky and they put on all this muscle or they look this lean. Like there's a reason they look like that. Like their diet and their training is exactly what is going to be displayed with their physique. So that's a true tale to like tell how hard they work with their diet, their training, their sleep, recovery, all of it. Like there's so much that goes into it. So that's what I wish a lot of people that aren't in it would realize.
Absolutely. When you're talking about bodybuilding saved my life, I love that. It's like you're making this clothing for a reason, for a purpose. What are you looking to accomplish in the next 3 to 6 months with Hardwear? What does the future look like with the company, and where do you want to see maybe some breakthroughs or maybe expand?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the next 3 to 6 months, I would like to see, obviously, like as a whole, our brand needs to grow. I think it would be awesome if we could obviously upgrade our equipment. That would be a start. That's
The
probably
screen
not.
printing, like
Yeah,
the ability
yeah,
to make the clothes. Yeah.
yeah. That's probably not doable in the next 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months, but I would say I just hope that like more brand awareness would be awesome. And that's also like with that, the screen printing, that's why we're trying to do more videos of like what it takes to just make one shirt. We're trying to show people that it's like we know that our quality isn't top notch yet, but this is what it takes to just make one shirt. It's not just roll it through a printer and it's done. Like there's a lot of steps that go into it. So it's like bringing that awareness to people is I want people to see, like even our customers that already fuck with our brand. Like I want them to see like how much we actually care about this brand. Like we're not just trying to make money. Like we're trying to put a message out there like about bodybuilding. We're trying to normalize the sport of bodybuilding.
Absolutely, man. And so I think that's important to know too. So as far as your materials go, like where do you source your shirts from? Like what does that process look like when somebody places an order? Can you talk about your ops basically?
Yeah. So we originally started with the Shockaware. That was like our original. That's who we were getting the blanks from. We liked them, but we were finding that the neck, like I said earlier, the necks were just way too tight. The recent ones that we did, this one, like the longer quarter sleeves, this was from Alibaba. And that was great. That was more expensive than the Shockaware and also is from like, I think Pakistan. So it would take almost a month to get them in. And with this
Right.
barbecue coming up, we were like, well, we need to get them before that because we have 50 plus shirts that we need to print by August 24th. So we were like, well, let's go back to the Shockaware, find something that's still oversized but is different. I forgot the name of it. It was like neck drop or something similar to this. The original Shockaware was like a collar, like it was very thick. So we needed something that was like this, but still the oversized sleeves. So we ended up
Right.
finding that. So what we did, we sampled a couple shirts from there, and then we printed on them. And we're like, "Yep, this is what we want." So we got all of those ordered, and then what we did was we tried to do. So we have three designs total on the front, and then we have two of each size, and then obviously we have to get the back as well. So we got, as of right now, we have pretty much all of the fronts of the shirts done. We just need to put the bodybuilding save my life on the back. What we do, like what the process looks like printing a shirt is obviously we pull the blanks out of the box that we got. So screen printing, you buy a like screen that has your graphic design on it. They're like, I think over $100, but they're multiple use.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going to be able to reuse as much as possible. The only problem with that is about every, I don't know, 5 to 8 shirts, you got to wash the screen because the paint starts to clutter up in the design. So that's
Wow.
why it's so time consuming. It's not much so like mentally taxing. It's just so time consuming because like when you don't clean the screens correctly, like that will leave the designs not looking right on the shirt. So
Right.
it's been it's been a lot of trial and error with us. Trying to figure out. I think we got a pretty good handle on it now, so we're just ripping through shirts. Usually, what we've been doing recently is we every Sunday we all pull up to Kenny's apartment and we rock out some shirts. So that's been our Sunday routine.
Dude.
Yeah,
I
it's been a really good time actually. It's been fun.
I love that, man. And I think too, I think probably for season 3, we're gonna find a way to get you and the boys in a room, and maybe we'll see if
Oh
we can
yeah.
try and record that. If anything, we can try and do something like this with the Hollywood Squares kind of thing. But
Yep.
I think their personalities are they're just awesome. And if
Hmm.
I'm thinking of people like you guys, it's you, Kenny, and Brian, right?
Hmm.
Is it who's the original guy? Is it Brad? I'm sorry, I
It's
forgot his name.
Brad. Yep, Brad
Brad.
Jacobs.
Okay.
Yep.
And is he's still in Iowa, or like is he
Yeah.
okay? So you
Yep.
got the four horsemen basically on
Hmm.
hardware. Like with the clothing stuff, I guess what are challenges with running a clothing company? I've had people on the show that have done stuff like in small batches and stuff, and but do you guys have you sell on the site? We'll link the site, but like what are some challenges with getting it out there? We talked about making it, what it takes, but like managing all of the orders and then distribution, like what are you guys working on with that?
Yeah. So there's a great thing actually with all of us four as everyone's a moving part. Like we're all doing different things. Like when we first started, we were like Brian, you're doing this, Kenny, you're doing this. Basically, Brad is just designing, and then Kenny, Brian, and I are just doing the rest. So we're printing the shirts, we're sewing them, we're shipping them, like ordering all the blanks, ordering everything else that we need for whatever. That's all that we're doing. So it's like there's a lot of moving parts, like I said, but it's been working very well because it's like although all of us have our own thing, like bodybuilding, Brian's in school, Kenny and I both work a full-time job, like I'm coaching on the side, like there's a lot going on for all of us, but like all of us are determined, like we're all bodybuilders. That's something that we learned from the sport of bodybuilding is how to sacrifice and how to be determined. Like we make on Sunday, like we make it happen no matter what. Like we're there at Kenny's place printing shirts because we have a due date that these need to be done by, so we're getting it done, no questions. So it's like
Gosh, man.
that's something that I also want people to see is like it's not we're not just trying to make money. Like I said that earlier, but we're not just trying to make money. Like we're trying to put a message out there and give people like because for the longest time I was like like seeing these other clothing brands, Dark Sport and all that shit. I was like, it's not quite like my style. Like I just don't like they're cool, but it's like I've always wanted like a certain style, and this shirt's like a perfect example, like the boxy shoulder drop with how it drapes down. Like that's something that like
Right.
I've always wanted, especially as I've gotten bigger. Like that's the clothes I want to wear. I don't want tight shit. I want everything
No.
baggy, oversized. So
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
it's been good, man. Everyone's holding their own weight. We like I said, every little thing that goes into doing a clothing brand, like someone has handled in the group. So
Absolutely.
it's been a lot of fun.
So you're working a full-time gig, you are running a clothing company, you are a bodybuilder, and you are a coach for others. What type of so I mean I'm already getting you got to be very meticulous with your time. You have to be very efficient, also dedicated. I love how you got the other guys too. I'm sure you all have a massive amount of accountability. Like if somebody doesn't show up on a Sunday, it's like, "Hey bro, where were you?"
Oh, there's
You know,
no choice. We're dragging into Kenny's place.
yeah,
It's
and then
happening.
all the talk is going to happen, right? Obviously somebody's sick, whatever, but in your coaching as well, you had told me on the phone when we talked originally, what type of fitness coaching do you do? What do you offer your clients? Because I want people to know that too when they're listening to your interview, like, gosh, this guy's communication style, I could really work with this guy. What type of fitness coaching services do you offer?
Yeah. So what I do is I do competitors and non-competitors. Obviously, I would say majority of the people I work with are just general fitness clients, which is not a
Okay.
problem with me. Like I enjoy working with people that are new into the fitness. Like a lot of them always come at me with these just outlandish, wild myths that they heard about eating carbohydrates or just dumb shit like that. So
Yeah.
I love being able to clear the air and be like, no, this is like, well, this is what I've done, and this is what has worked for other people as well. So it's like, and the other thing is a lot of people probably look at me and they're like, oh, he's a coach. Well, he's just a dumb meathead. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And it's like,
Thank
well,
you for getting that myth out there, brother. I wanted to talk about it. If you didn't bring it up, I was going to bring it up. Not that you're a
so
dumb meathead, but that
well,
myth, right? Go ahead. So when
yeah,
they see you, they think that, right? Okay.
right. And it's like before I was this big, I tried every other aspect of fitness. Like I was in CrossFit for 7 years. I was doing like endurance training for athletic training. Like I've done it all. So like I just choose to do bodybuilding because that's what I like the most out of every training. Whether I'm bodybuilding or not, I'm doing something in the gym. Like I'm doing something to better myself every day. So it's just I just chose bodybuilding because that's what I love, and that's what I have the most enjoyment from doing. So it's like I like being able to like have conversations or help people make them realize that like I'm not just a stupid meathead. Like I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about. And it's like without having I know what I'm talking about without having to say, oh, I have this degree or oh, I have this certification. Like I like being able
Mm,
to just spit knowledge and be like, no, this is what I know and this is what works. So that's why I enjoy with working with general fitness clients. That's what I do as my full time too. Like my full time, I'm working with people that are in general fitness or just starting out.
okay.
So it's like that's majority of what I work with. I have a few competitors. I've lowered my competitor just because it takes a lot of time and focus to work with someone that's competing, much more
Mm,
than it would just for like a general fitness client. Like when I have someone that's competing, I'm kind of over concerned. I'm like, you're doing your cardio, like all of this stuff. So, and honestly, like as time has gone on recently, like I've realized that coaching might be a thing that I come back to later on in life, because bodybuilding is a very selfish sport. Like, and I'm sure people have heard that before. I just have to bring it up because it's very selfish sport. Like, if you truly want to see the best in yourself in the sport of bodybuilding, you have to be selfish. You cannot be, especially in a prep. Like, it's much different in an off season. When like you're not doing hours of cardio, hours of posing. Like, you have a bit more free time in a prep. It's like there has to be 100% focus every day, all the time. So having that said, like a lot of I have all these other responsibilities, which is great because it's like having this clothing brand that's fucking awesome. I'm employed. I have a full-time job. Like that's great as well. But it's like bodybuilding is my number one. I putting all of my focus in. That's just how it has to be. And it's not that's not me saying that I'm better than anyone else. It's just I'm putting all of my focus into this. So,
do you remember
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You're good.
I was going to say, do you remember the CT Fletcher video where he's talking about his arms?
Yeah, of course.
That is what I am reminded of when you talk about it being a selfish sport. I just love that because I think he did a follow up to it, right? So he has the one where he's curling and he's
Mm-hmm.
he's talking to his bicep. I knew about like Arnold, Ronnie Coleman,
Butler.
Jay Cutler, yeah. So
Yeah.
like I knew about those guys, but like I had never heard of CT Fletcher. So I start geeking on CT Fletcher, and he was talking about. He goes, "You know how I got these arms? It's because I became obsessed with making these arms." Right? He's like, whatever you get obsessed about, that will come true for you too. He's basically saying it in a way that only CT Fletcher could have said it, right?
Yep.
And what's amazing is that people are selfish, man. Like everybody has selfish thing that they do and they do too much of. And whether it's getting in their own head, all that kind of stuff. Like, but yeah, I mean, with your meal planning, 6 meals a day, and especially if you're trying to get in like 300 grams of protein per day, you're not going to be the best dude to go have lunch with sometimes, right? Because you're like, well, I need to eat at certain times and I need to eat certain things. So if you want somebody to sit across the table from you with his lunchbox and and eat what he has to eat while you eat that other stuff, like I might be your guy, but it can be people, again, going back to that insecurity. They're like, I just imagine like, oh, Chase doesn't eat that stuff, right? Like I know from personal experience going on different diets and holding the line or like being off of caffeine for, months at a time, people start to go, ooh, or like, like I don't drink, right? So I don't drink alcohol. And so sometimes people will say, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Like I can't handle watching them drink. You know what
Exactly,
I mean?
right? Yeah, like I give a fuck.
It's like, bro, totally. Like I've been sober for 7 years. Like this is not, I've seen so much worse. Right. And so, it can be, again, going back to people not understanding, people I think can maybe alienate themselves, or maybe they'll assume like that you're judging them for their life choices. But I think, man, I mean, when I look at you, bro, I think, you know what? Chase shows me and other people what's possible. Brian shows me that. Kenny shows me that. Sid shows me that. Like we should seek to understand what it's like, right? And what we can learn from this, because really, I mean, if you look back, look at all of the sculptures that Michelangelo did. Look at the sculptures from Rome. A person being in peak physical fitness is like the target condition or something like that. But like all the philosophers back in the day, man, they were wrestlers, they were weightlifters, they took physical fitness serious, and they lived during times when there were wars where if you were not in good shape, it meant you died,
Yeah.
And if we think about the way the world's going, see, I'm getting now, philosophy. I got an inroad to philosophy now. What's your philosophy, man, on just certain things in life, man? Like you mentioned in our previous conversation, you wanted to talk about being an artist in bodybuilding, right? And you said, I'm not just a meathead. I tried every other sport. So like, let's peel that layer of the onion back, man. Like what motivates you? Where do you find inspiration? What does it mean to be an artist in bodybuilding too?
Yeah, I think what kind of irks me to do what I do, a lot of it goes back to the injuries that I had. Like I'll relate to that a ton of times, but it's so true. Like a lot of that is like my bodybuilding has branched off of that. Like I'll never forget how low I was and how upset I was with myself, and it was something that I couldn't control. So like with that said, I think something that I've applied as a bodybuilder is just control what you can control. I'm not over here stressing about a million different things. Like I'm worried about my next meal in 20 minutes. Like I don't give a fuck the problems with my car, whatever. Like I just want to be better every day. So that's something that I learned from, being in physical therapy, having injuries that are like that. It's like just one foot after another every day, just taking your time, like you'll get there. Like that's something that I've applied, kind of my philosophy.
You mentioned another thing in our previous conversation about it might have been something based off of a quote. People don't care how much you know until they know you care. Can you kind of tell us about that? That came up multiple times in our conversation. And so I'm just curious, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So, funny story, actually, me and Kenny used to work at supplement superstores. The way we became friends was we started on the same exact day. So
is that S2, the guys who run Protein Bros podcast? Okay. And then that's the barbecue you're talking about, right? So this episode will release before that as well. So,
okay, sweet. Yeah.
Okay. So S2, got it. You guys work there.
So the owner, Jeff Wasserman, one of the dudes that's in the Protein Bros podcast, great dude, man. There was one of the first weeks that I had moved. So I had already had a job lined up to work there when I moved from Iowa to Kansas City. So I started there. Me and Kenny started on literally the same day, which is just, that's so crazy. But so anyway, we had our first month. They have monthly meetings every the first Sunday of the month at Chicken and Pickle, and so we went there, and it was one of, this is such a new experience for me. I don't know any of these people here. I just moved here 2 weeks ago. He said in the meeting, that's what he said. He was like, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And ever since, like, working in the store, like in retail, that's a huge thing. I applied it to my personal training as a coach now. Like the people that I'm working with, I just show a little interest, and they're willing to listen to what I have to say. So that kind of goes back to when I was talking about like not being just a stupid meathead and actually knowing what I'm talking about. It's like, if you just, like, if someone comes to you, a bodybuilder comes to you with a serious question about fitness or diet, and you're able to show a little interest that you care, they're going to open up like a book. Like they'll listen to everything that you have to say. So hearing him say that really hit hard. I was like, man, this is like, because with bodybuilding, like, it'd be great to just be a shadow in the dark and not talk to anyone, put my head down, just only bodybuild, not just be a fucking asshole, not be active on social media. That'd be great. I really wish I could do that, but it's not ideal. It's not ideal for someone that's in the sport of bodybuilding nowadays, because it's not like any other professional sport. When you get to the professional level, you have to have some sort of business, whether it's, Jay Cutler is a big inspiration for me when it comes to that. He was always talked about through his entire bodybuilding career. He was always had some sort of business on the outside that he was doing. He was responding to emails, like helping people out. Like, it wasn't just that he had a sponsorship and a magazine deal. Like, there needs to be more than that, because we can't bodybuild forever, unfortunately. Like, the trunks are going to have to be hung up at some point. And so having a successful business on the side is very important. And with that being said, that quote still stands. Like, you need to show people that you care at least a little bit to have them understand what you're saying.
Absolutely, man. I know too that I just look at the impact that you guys have had on me, and thinking and reflecting too, like about stuff like COVID and becoming really inactive. And, when you stop moving, or you know this, right? Like, I think we talked about this. You will take time off from the gym to rest, because that's part of your regimen. But like, you know what it feels like when you're sick and you can't get to the gym multiple days in a row, and the psychological warfare that gets going in your head. I wonder too, do you ever think, man, I'm losing it? I feel like I'm not as disciplined as I could be. Do you ever have any of that negative self stuff that comes up? And if you do, how do you deal with that? Not being where you want to be yet.
I don't ever really think to myself, like, I'm not as disciplined as I should be. It's more so that I'm afraid that it won't get me where I want to be. I know that it will. I have to remind myself that daily. I'm like, man, is what I'm doing really, is this going to get me to where I want to be? Because it's such a big risk. I'm like sacrificing literally everything. I drained my entire savings account to be a bodybuilder. Like this, I am throwing everything in the basket for this. And it's like, there are times where I'm, doing my hour of cardio, and I'm like, is this even fucking worth it? And I have to say, no, it is. Like, this is where this is going to get me to where I want to be. So it's doing that day in and day out. It builds. I posted this on my story the other day. This shit doesn't get easier. You just get harder. You get stronger. Like everything thrown at you in life, it never gets easier. It gets harder, but you have to get stronger. You have to be able to carry that load on your shoulders.
Absolutely, man. Man, I've so enjoyed connecting with you, Chase. We'll make sure that we get this episode out here in the next few days. Is there anything that we didn't discuss that, you feel like is important to say, or maybe even just your parting words that you would give to our listeners for this episode?
I think we pretty much covered everything. Like I said, there's with this brand and what I'm doing as a bodybuilder, I just want more awareness to people. So I just really appreciate you having me on here to like spread the word about like what it means to be a bodybuilder and what it takes truly to be there. And like I said, I'm not even to the end goal. I'm not even close to the end goal. Like I've got much more to go. And I've already experienced so much. So yeah, I just want to say that I really appreciate you having me on to be able to share my passion and what it's about.
For all you local folks, Hardwear will be at that S2 barbecue. What is that, August 24th?
August 24th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., I believe.
Okay.
Yep.
Sweet. So definitely go show them some love. And I can just say, just for everybody too, shameless plug for Beastified. If you're looking to improve your fitness and find a community of people that are supportive, no matter what level you're at, Sid didn't pay me to say that, but as a person that goes there and loves the folks that go there, I have to say that. Jace, I'll be ordering a black shirt as soon as they come in stock on the website, man. I'll have to have all you guys on the show again for season 3. So, man, much love to you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Likewise.
All right, everybody, tune in next time.